imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Surrounded by you.
Can you hear me? Okay, go ahead and get started. The name daylily is accurate. Each blossom survives only one day, opening in the morning, and by the end of the day, its life is over. Daylilies may be the most carefree of all flowering perennials, as they thrive in most any type of soil, will grow in sun or shade, and are rarely troubled by insect or disease. Daylilies are known for their toughness, but they also dazzle with their big, colorful flowers. They grow quickly and are long-lived. But why is any of this important? Hold on to that question, and we'll get into it right after we watch a few snapshots of Sharron's life and hear the song, "Oh Wait" by Josh Groban.
Beautiful, brightly morning, the world outside begins to breathe. See clouds arriving without warning.
Carrie and Sharon's families, thank you for joining us in this celebration tribute. I am celebrant Cindy Pierce and honored to share this story with you today. Daylilies began with simple yellow or red flowers and have changed drastically through years of breeding. Today we see blooms with different shades of orange, pink, white, peach, and more. Not only has the color palette expanded over the years, so have the types of blooms, including long, slender petals and others with ruffled double flowers. And many daylilies boast a pleasant fragrance. Before I asked, why is any of this important? As most of you know, Sharon's favorite flower was the daylily. And today, we will live her life cycle, such as that of this flower. And her story begins now. Carlton Young was deployed on a naval ship when he received a telegram stating, "Baby girl born, 10 pounds, cesarean birth. Betty and baby okay. Answer please, Dad." This is how Carlton learned that his wife Betty had given birth to their daughter, Sharon Ann, on September 22nd, 1943, in Kansas City, Missouri. The seed was planted, so to speak, now to cultivate and watch her grow. There are pictures of young Carlton and Betty feeding their baby girl, Daddy giving her kisses, them taking her for walks in the buggy, and as she grew, a young Sharon is running in the yard and riding her tricycle beside them. This photo album also holds Valentine and Father's Day cards, young Sharon signed, "Love, Sherry," as they posted them off to Carlton when he is back aboard the vessel. Time passed, and like the lily, she began to grow. The family moved as Carlton started a new job with union truckers, and Sharon attended school, where in 1961, she graduated from Shawnee Heights North. If we're honest, home life growing up wasn't great. It was more of don't be seen or heard. And her mom was overprotective. No swimming and no heights. Yet Sharon's grandparents stepped in, and here she had the full love of family as they taught her how to cook, clean, and go to church, where she taught Sunday school and more. This was her safety. And now her scape or stalk began to rise above the arched foliage when she moved to an apartment and began school at Metropolitan Junior College in Kansas City, Missouri. Here is where she began to bloom by living life a little on the edge. I know, hard to imagine quiet, sweet Sharon living her life on the edge, but she did. She lived a little, and it's here through friends. She met Jim Kelly, a man she went on to marry. And as we know, daylilies multiply easily. And the same is for her story. When she and Jim welcomed twin boys, David and Dennis, at St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City. She's heartbroken with them being born premature, even more so that she didn't get to bond and hold them in their first few weeks. The family gave life a try together, yet eventually she and Jim went their separate ways. And not long after, Jim was killed in an accident while changing a tire on the side of the road. Lyrics from the song Lullaby by Josh Groban say, "Hush now, baby, don't you cry. Rest your wings, my butterfly. Peace will come to you in time, and I will sing this lullaby." Hear the song Lullaby as we watch a few more glimpses in the life of Sharon.
Baby, don't you cry. Rest your wings, my butterfly. Peace will come to you
Now that her flower had bloomed and a new stalk grew stronger, the flower was more vibrant and ready to see new ventures. And that's exactly what she did. When in the mid-70s, a love for nature, birding, photography, travel, and reading enticed her to join a class for the docent or volunteer program at the Kansas City Zoo. Sharron Gregory was head of the education department, and that year was the first class of the docent program. Before you could volunteer, though, you had to take a 7-hour course with Harry as your instructor. He said Sharron stood out in class, made an impact from the start. And at the zoo, she booked and gave tours, presented slide lectures to 20,000 people annually, was membership chairman, in charge of recruiting and training new docents, as well as helped expand the kazoo program, Kids Aid the Zoo, and later was the education program chairman. The Zoo-mobile was done with good friend Marilyn Wyman, and together the two took birds, snakes, chinchillas, and others to schools and nursing homes. The pair became fast friends, even traveled together to docent at zoos in Oklahoma City, Omaha, and St. Louis. Marilyn was one of many that became part of their birding community. And in their downtime, in later years, Sharron joined Marilyn at her cabin in Missouri as they hiked trails or sat on the porch drinking tea and birdwatched together. A friendship earned in the 70s and lasted Sharron's lifetime. Now this is a little off the subject, but it's in this time period. So we want to mention that in her 30s, Sharron became a stepsister when her father welcomed another daughter named Carla. And though there was an age gap, Sharron cherished this relationship and spent a lot of time with her young sister, bringing her to the zoo, having her over at her home, never missed a birthday or holiday, sent homemade letters and cards, of which we all know those cards come in later in life too. Carla said she babied her, never said a cross word. They were opposites. Sharron, kind and reserved. Carla, a loudmouth. Honestly, for the longest time, Carla thought her sister was the coolest as she saw pictures of Sharron holding and feeding chimpanzees and others at her home. Thought she just owned a bunch of animals. Okay, back to the zoo. Just when we thought we had talked about it all, Sharron was also in charge of the zoo's volunteer special projects, grants, and developments. And when she was president of the docents, she spent hours on the phone, calling, getting to know members, and had a great ability to recognize and utilize people's talents and place them in positions to get things done. Among others, in 1979, she received the Bernie Hoffman Community Service Award for her volunteer work in the community and helping to expand the zoo's educational program. Guess we can say, this is when Harry met Sharron. And things really began to blossom. Their time together was not only at the zoo, yet she joined the bird watching trips he held with the Audubon Society. They called this group Harry's Harem, as they traveled to Cheyenne Bottoms, Quivira, and other locations around Kansas and Oklahoma to watch. And over this time, they grew a companionship, created a strong bond. So much so, when Harry took a job as the director at the Hutchinson Zoo, he said, "Let's get married, and you come with me." They wed on February 14th, 1983. If you can picture it, it brings back to mind those cards she signed for her daddy all those years ago, but now to her husband, as she says, "Love, Sherry." They'd stay in Hutchinson for 13 years, and she didn't like most of them, Harry said. There's nothing to do, but of course found herself volunteering at the zoo and took a job at Hutchinson Medical Center. In their downtime, after work and on weekends, they do crosswords and New York Times puzzles together, as well as continued birding. And each year they drive to Wichita for the annual daylily sale, where they'd amass a good variety of lilies around their home. I think he said about 35 different kinds. However, when Harry found a job in Wichita, here at Cape and Mount Carmel School, she couldn't pack fast enough. In fact, finding a job at Wichita Urology Group was a highlight for her. Here, her exceptional organizational skills took her from being a receptionist to the surgery schedule and to speak on her time there. There's no one better to do it than the doctor she scheduled for, Dr. J. Gilbaugh. As he makes his way up, after he speaks, we would like to open the floor to you. I will bring the microphone to you so that you're welcome to stay where you are so that we can share more memories of her.
Thank you. As she mentioned, Sharron was my surgery scheduler. That title underestimates what these people do. I mean, basically, she ran my life. So if my wife wanted 5 minutes of my time, she would call Sharron, and I would never. If anybody ever wanted me to do something, I'd say you have to talk to Sharron, and she is the person who served in that tenure for the longest period of time. I've been in practice for 26 years now, and as was already mentioned, she was incredibly organized. She was, and this is a very stressful job. Back then, I was doing a lot of combined surgeries with other surgeons, and so each surgery would, I think, average about 8 phone calls to get this all right. And then at the last minute, I'd say, oh, by the way, I was getting involved in medical politics, and oh, by the way, Sharron, I've got a meeting, so we need to cancel all that. And she never once lost her cool. She had the perfect demeanor to handle this kind of busy and stressful job. And I just loved her smile and her laugh. She just had a great personality. Like I said, never got flustered. And then when she retired from that job, our relationship continued because my son Matthew was a competitive golfer, and Harry became his biggest fan. Harry would come out and watch his tournaments, and Sharron would sometimes join him. And Sharron got my wife interested in daylilies and botanical type things, and also Harry got my wife and I interested in birds, which an interest which we continue to this day. So she was a terrific person, more than an employer or surgery scheduler. It was an honor to work with her during her time at Wichita Urology Group, and remember her fondly. So appreciate you giving me the opportunity, Harry, to come speak about her today.
She told me a lot about that job and her experience there. She loved it.
Hopefully it wasn't all bad.
It was great. She talked about it a lot, yeah.
It was a great pleasure having her, that's for sure.
So Carla, her sister, was saying that she talked about the job often and how much she loved it. So I can walk to you. If you have a story you'd like to share, just raise your hand and I will come over. I know this is not a shy group. She was the quiet one. But that's okay if you don't want to share either. You have time afterwards to share with Harry when you go to Botanica. Anyone? We had a couple of messages online, and I was going to read a couple. Jeannie says, Sharron and I came together over a love of paper crafting and card making. She shared her love of nature with me, teaching me how to attract Baltimore Orioles to my yard, and shared my excitement at spotting new species. She passed on her passion for daylilies to me. When my daughter's new home revealed unusual blooms, Sharron was quick to identify them and share tips on how to help them flourish. She even generously sent me some bulbs that are still growing in my yard. I will always think of her when I see them bloom. She touched my life and always reminded me to appreciate the simple things. I will miss her greatly. Jeff wrote, I worked with Sharron for many years at Wichita Urology. Sharron shared her love of daylilies and started me on my collection throughout the years. I'm sure there are a lot of collections throughout this town. She was always very kind to me, and she will be missed by many. So we urge you to continue to share online, because any new memories you place online are new for Harry as well. So we've heard many stories, and we haven't even finished her volunteer and work hobbies. That lily, planted those many years ago, is full of blooms, each pointing in different directions, yet organized, just like her. She again found love at a zoo, here at Sedgwick County Zoo, and her volunteering reached far and wide in this docent program too. So much so, there will be a plaque placed in her favorite aspect of this sprawling location, the elephant exhibit. It will read, Sharron Gregory, zoo docent who loved all wildlife, but especially elephants. She was grateful for the opportunity to help teach children about animals' lives. Let's go to Botanica and what she did there. The list is just as long. We talked with Christy Conkle, the volunteer coordinator, and her words were brilliant, with light and flight. When she says Sharron was willing to help when and wherever needed. Her passion for Botanica was actively volunteering with our garden ambassador or docent and education programs. She truly loved educating about Botanica and nature. She loved butterflies and was dedicated to helping throughout our Monarch Week. This was her favorite event. During this week in September, monarch butterflies pass through Kansas on their migration from the northern US and Canada to southwestern Mexico. Botanica hosts several school groups, educates them on migration, and Sharron thrived as she taught them about tagging butterflies, why we tag, and demonstrated the process. Because of her love for butterflies and educating on them, Botanica thought it would be a great opportunity to memorialize her with a puddling station in their butterfly house. A station will be permanently installed with signage educating guests about butterflies and the reason puddling is so essential. Who knows why puddling is important? Don't tell me. Just raise your hand if you know why puddling is important. Just a couple, right? We're educating today in her honor. Butterflies, particularly male ones, are attracted to certain wet spots along stream banks or puddles. The salt collected from the water during puddling is important in their diets. Puddling stations are like bird baths, yet for butterflies, so they have something to land on, as to not wet their wings. You can't fly when they're wet and their wings are wet. So now you got your little education for the day. The plaque here will say, come fly with me, beautiful and graceful, varied and enchanting, small but approachable. Butterflies lead you to the sunny side of life, and everyone deserves a little sunshine. A quote by Jeffrey Glassberg. Sharron and Harry were also part of Botanica's largest fundraising event of the year, Illuminations. And this past year, they volunteered at the Kecha Family Carousel area. And with Sharron being active in many local clubs and a founding member of the Prairie Winds Daylilies Society, she was part of organizing the daylily groups to volunteer during Botanica's Supper with Santa event too. How appropriate that that picture's right there, because there's a Santa event. They would make cookies. It's no wonder her lily had so many blooms pointed in each direction. They had to cover a lot, and they did. Kindly, gently, and honestly. Let's talk about home. We mentioned they had many variety of daylilies in their Hutchinson home. Yet here in Wichita, that number is closer to 300. she won many awards for those too. She truly was a connoisseur. Another passion of her was dogs. It began with a black chap, then a Sheltie, before spending nearly a dozen years with her Papillon dogs, Quincy and Fenwick, of which she took to agility classes. Not for competition, yet for exercise for both her and the dogs. They also joined the Sunflower Cluster Dog Show, of which she became a judge. And in this past year, they were down to one dog, Spirit, a brown and white Papillon she adored. For more on their life and home, I want to read a letter Harry wrote, followed by the song Goodbye, as we catch a few more glimpses of her life and pictures. From Harry. I was asked what one word described Sharron and didn't have an answer. The only thing I could think of was complicated, and that was in a good way. She was shy in unfamiliar settings, but someone outspoken when she knew who she was speaking to. She was a perfectionist in many ways, from buying gifts for family to making baskets and cards, getting A's in classes she took, and doing a good job in anything she was assigned. When making baskets and cards, she often completely started over if she didn't get it right the first time. Consequently, there are a number of unfinished baskets in the basement because there wasn't enough time in group classes to make them perfect, at least in her mind. They all looked good to me. She had so many hobbies over the past 37 years. Some were just in passing, like collecting miniature birdhouses, teapots, Boyd's bears, and dabbling with calligraphy. However, dog agility training, basket weaving, and stamping, card making, each became an obsession lasting 10 years or more. And in turn, friends and relatives look forward to receiving her cards for holidays and special events. She had a blog, On Papillon Wings, related to her card making, that in 11 years had nearly 250,000 views, and she belonged to a group of 12 ladies from around the US and Canada called the 12 Kits of Occasion. Each month, one of the ladies would make a kit of card-making materials to send to the others in the group. Then the members would make several cards of those materials and post them on Facebook on the night before the last day of the month. Then each member would comment on the other's cards, and over time, as they became more acquainted, Sharron often commented, "It was like having another family." We birded together all over the country, alone or on American Birding Association or Rhodes Scholar field trips, covering most of the birding hotspots in the US. She always delighted in finding and identifying birds before I saw it. Her life list is at least 416 different species. She has seen 214 in Kansas. For a long time, her favorite place we visited was Rocky Mountain National Park. Memorable, because while I was concentrating, trying to photograph a bird feeding young in its nest, Sharron was exchanging glances with a long-tailed weasel. She wanted me to see it, but didn't want to call, so she didn't scare it away. After about 5 minutes of the staring contest, I turned just in time to see the weasel jump off the log and scamper away. Rocky Mountain National Park was replaced with our trip to Maine a couple of years ago. Highlights of that trip included an unexpected detour to, correct me with the name, Marche Seal Island, about 12 miles off the coast, where we sat in the blind and photographed Atlantic puffins from about 6 feet away. This became her favorite place, and of course, her favorite bird. Sharron would agree that she was a fussy eater and was slow to try new restaurants. Some of her favorites from our Friday night dates were Le Monde for Mediterranean, Molino's for Mexican, Bite Me BBC for barbecue, Freddy's for burgers, and the Copper Oven. Occasionally, we would go to the Cracker Barrel or Bricktown Brewery, and I won't mention the places she refused to go. Finally, as I said, she never threw anything away. If you sent her a birthday, holiday, or thank you note, it is still in a box somewhere in our home. So far, I have found cards from friends from over 45 years ago and still have boxes to search through. As you can see, Sharron truly lived for the moments. The song, Goodbye.
I wanted you for life, you and me in the wind. I never thought there'd come a time that our story would end. It's hard to understand, but I guess I'll have to try. It's not easy to say goodbye. For all the joy we shared, all that time we had to spend. If I had one wish, I'd want forever back again, to look into your eyes and hold you when you cry. It's not easy to say goodbye. I remember all those great times we had, so many memories, some good, some bad. Yes, and through it all, those memories will last forever. There's peace in where you are, maybe all I need to know. And if I listen to my heart, I'll hear your laughter once more. And so I have to say, I'm just glad you came my way. It's not easy to say goodbye.
Harry mentioned the boxes of cards Sharron kept over all these years from anyone who took the time to send them. And Carla, her baby sister, treasured the homemade cards she received too. In fact, Carla's daughter, Georgia, was enamored at Sharron's involvement, so much so that she wanted to follow in her aunt's footsteps, as she too became a volunteer at the zoo in Dallas. Most may not know, because her heart gave so selflessly in all that she did, that same heart had a pacemaker placed around 8 years ago. Heart conditions ran on her father's side of the family, and she became no stranger to having it worked on over the years. However, when a different pacemaker recently needed to be placed, Harry knew immediately after it wasn't the same as before. Sharron knew too. as once they were able to get home, she began organizing her cards, her baskets, her life. Monday morning, March 30th, Harry was scheduled to play golf, as he is most mornings. They spoke. He's in and out, moving cars around, placing clubs in the back, and he heads up to brush his teeth. Sharron was down sitting in his chair. It had become her new comfort. And when he came to kiss her goodbye, as he did before he left each time, with Spirit sitting on her lap, he realized she had peacefully passed. Many commented on Sharron, saying she had beautiful eyes, that smile, her laughter, and the way she would tilt her head and listen, truly listen to the ones she touched. Like daylilies, she was a pleasure to be around. She had grown, her flowers fully bloomed, and now it is time to separate the bulbs, replant, and just like the butterfly leaving the cocoon is a symbol of freedom, it is time for the next life cycle to begin. So in taking forward her care of others, as you leave today, there is a table set with many of her handmade cards. Please take some. Write a note to someone who may need a hug or a smile. It doesn't have to wait for a special day, as we all know it's nice how good it feels to receive that card addressed to you in the mail. In her honor, share in one of many of her loved activities. And anytime you mail a letter, bring back this moment and keep the memory of Sharron Ann Young Gregory alive. Signed, Love, Sherry. Before we dismiss, a side note. Anyone who donates to one of the memorials listed in Sharron's obituary will have a chance to receive one of her many handmade baskets. So on behalf of the family and Hillside Funeral Home, we want to thank each person who has taken the time to be here today and those who have shared in their memories. Floanna Crowley for the beautiful arrangements that were made from Sharron's flowers. She went and picked them early this morning and made them. Becky Tanner for making calls to many of you for stories, as well as the staff here at Sedgwick County Zoo and Botanica, where you are now all invited to join at the Koi Pond Pavilion and continued sharing and amazing food from Sharron's favorite hometown restaurant, Molinos. There are many more who deserve thank yous, and please know we haven't forgotten you. We ask that you stay seated as our staff come forward for dismissal. Harry will be leaving first and greeting you out front. Enjoy the song of memories as we watch a few more of her life in pictures. There was one card that she made that said, "Live for the moments you can't put into words."
Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you would keep, but you're not. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones that had.
scattered pictures of the smiles we left behind, smiles we gave to one another for the way we were. Can it be that it was all so simple then? Or has time rewritten every line? If we had the chance to do it all again, tell me, would we? Could we? Memories may be beautiful, and yet what's too painful to remember